Daniel, thank you so much for joining us on the You're Not Alone podcast today. In prep, we were talking a little bit before this, and in prep for this interview, I was like a kid in a candy store just trying to figure out what is the route that I want to take. There are so many different angles. I mean, obviously, I don't want to do your intro for you. I want to give you that chance, but I'm just excited to have you on. So thank you for being here.
Yeah, thanks for thinking of me. I'm happy to be here.
I mean, you fit too perfectly, man. We're spreading love, hope, compassion, and information, and you are filled with all of those things. And so for my audience tuning in today, can you just kind of give everybody that quick introduction on yourself?
Sure. I am Daniel. I am 42, father of 3, married. I've written 2 books and writing a third. I own 2 companies and I consult for different corporations. And all of this is related to mental health and substance abuse. Absolutely.
And for people listening, he's written The Assertive Parent and Recover EDU, which you can find on Amazon.
That's right.
And so I do want to talk about entrepreneurship and that journey with you, because I have a feeling that you're going to have some nuggets there, some golden nuggets to drop on people in terms of just fulfillment and purpose. Mm-hmm. But when I was preparing for this interview, I was going through your website and just like recalling our conversations and knowing your journey. And I loved what you said on your website. You said, sobriety is your superpower.
Correct.
And what I want to know is, what does that mean to you?
It means I think a lot of people view like a mental health disorder or being in recovery from substance as a deficit. But I've chosen to parlay all of that pent up, anxious, creative energy and push it out into the world. Yeah. So for me, once I decided I didn't want to sit in it any longer, and I wanted to activate change, I'm an extremely anxious person. I've had a lifetime of depression and anxiety. And it's not perfect, but I certainly have developed a lot from in the last 7 years, 2 months since I stopped drinking. My whole life has changed in every way possible. And it sounds so dumb. Like when people say that everything you want, like you're just like, blah. But
you're like, you sound like the motivational art that
I know. I sound like a
motivational
speaker, and I'm not trying to sell you anything except for the idea that you have no idea what's ahead of you. Everything is hidden in plain sight.
Ooh, I love that. Everything is hidden in plain sight. And it's funny because I have a lot of people in my life that reach out to me on the anxiety and depression front. We've got that very much so in common. And they're in this place, right? They're stuck and they're kind of repeating similar habits over and over again, and they're getting the same results. But it's like what you said, like once you, and it's not to sound motivational, but once you've kind of come out the other side and you're this evolved version of yourself, it was always hiding in plain sight. And there's this person that you could be, or that you are, like we're fluid, right?
Yeah, you have to disrupt the marketplace. Think about your brain as like a big city, and your old thinking or your depression or your coping skills or your drinking are taxi cabs, right? And then you have to be Uber and disrupt the marketplace, right? You just have to stay in there long enough to shake shit up, pardon my language. I
love it.
In order to get to see the results, right? Because we want like instant gratification. At least I do. Like when I
think that's human nature.
I want it. I want what I want, and I want it now. And so when you're making a big change, like when I was taking antidepressants or anti-anxiety medicine, they're like, oh, it's like 4 to 8 weeks to work, right? You're like, bro, 4 to 8 weeks?
I don't have that kind of time.
Yeah, I don't have that kind of time. Or when I stopped drinking, I had to like really get real boring, right? And just like sit down in my feelings and meet my feelings and sit in the stillness, which was counterintuitive to anything I had ever done. I was always busy, always hungover, always going, right? In order to be able to see what was in front of me.
Right. So I actually want to talk about that, because I think there are going to be a lot of listeners, people that they clicked on this episode because of the title that I'm going to make it. And I'm anticipating what my title is going to be. But I want to know, Can you walk us through like Daniel before the Daniel we know today? Like, walk me through his day to day. I know you said that this was, obviously when I was brushing up on our conversations and just your story, that this was something that was 15 years in the making.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you knew, but you either didn't want to address it, or it was the kind of the path of least resistance. So can you walk me through kind of what you just kind of said, I was always hungover. What did that day-to-day look like?
I don't have a really sexy story. Like, there's no arrest or DUI or anything. But as I transitioned from college to young adulthood, and then really like from like 28, 27 to 34, and I quit when I was 35, that late adult, like late 20s, early 30s, young professional, I knew that I wanted to stop, or I needed to stop. I just didn't feel well. It was a losing battle, and it was just rinse and repeat. So I had this like paralysis by analysis, where I thought of all of the hypotheticals that sobriety would bring. And there were two outcomes, like a positive or negative. And my mind always just flashed onto the negative. And I would get stuck in this thought loop of worry and concern and entitlement. Like, it won't be fun. I won't be fun. Like I was some royal or something, like needed to be entertained. Right. So I stuck there until I literally broke. Like, it broke me. The alcohol broke me. I had an anxiety attack. I thought I was having a heart attack. And I went to the doctor. I went to urgent care, and they're like, you're not having a heart attack.
Yeah. So, what did they say? Were they like,
I was urgent care, so it wasn't my primary care physician. I didn't see my primary care physician until probably the Tuesday, right? Because it was New Year's Day, and I went to the doctor. After a night of and it wasn't even like a crazy bender. It wasn't even like a DP original. It was just sort of a rerun, like something I had done over and over again. But it was just that the voice inside my head about not drinking was getting louder. And then the anxiety, the rebound anxiety, or hangxiety as people call it, like the hangover anxiety, it hits different. It hits different. And I was a high school assistant principal, and I was working 60, 65 hours a week, and I was finishing a fifth of vodka a night. I mean, it was a commitment. It was a full-time job
on all fronts.
And then a full-time job. Right. So, and my daughter was 3, my oldest was 3. And then I just decided I was going to take a month off to prove to myself and to my wife and be indignant that I didn't have a problem with kind of full intention of going back.
Yeah.
But then I just never did. And that 30 days has turned into 7 years and 2 months.
That's amazing. That is incredible. And I want to walk through that process. I'm curious, were there any other, like, I know you said vodka was your ride or die. Were there any other complementary services, drugs?
Anything. It was a buffet.
It was a buffet.
It was like you're in Vegas and there's a buffet. I didn't really mess with hard drugs or anything like that. Beer, wine, vodka, anything after a certain extent. Pills, if I wasn't very prescription conforming.
Okay.
I think they call that updosing, right?
Okay.
When you get, like injured and they give you a painkiller and like, take one every 6 hours, and you're taking 3 every 2 hours, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and then the reason why I asked that too is because there are people in my life that I know that like alcohol was kind of that starting point, and then it kind of dovetailed into opiates and
I was too afraid of that kind of stuff. I called it hangover math. Like with vodka, I had it down to a science. I knew how much I could have, when to go to sleep, how many Excedrin to take. When I woke up at 3 with raging anxiety, drink a Gatorade, have 2 more Excedrin, go back to sleep, get up at 5, take a shower, go to Starbucks, right? Like I had it. So I didn't want to branch from that because I was so codependent on it that it was just, the devil I knew was better than the devil I didn't.
That's powerful. And I think it's so interesting too that you had a formula. You had a formula that you were like, it worked. I can tap into this whenever I want, And as long as did you have kind of a thought process too, where it was like, I'm showing up for work?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Was it principal or assistant?
Wave my resume like a fucking receipt. Like, oh, I pay the bills. I own a home. I'm married. I have a kid. I'm, have this great job, win these awards. I don't go to school drunk, no DUIs. Like, none of that matters.
Right. And when you said that you were like crushing a fifth a night, was your wife, was she saying anything? Was she, kind of partying along with you? And
no, she was not partying along with me.
Okay.
She didn't know.
Okay.
Really. It was a shell game. I mean, I had, I'm just airing out all the tea. Why not?
Why not? I love it.
I always kept a fifth of vodka in my freezer.
Okay.
But then I carried a burner bottle, like a big bottle, somewhere else. And so if I drank a whole fifth, I'd fill it back up with half. So it looked like I didn't have that much.
That's smart. That's smart. Okay. Yeah. And these were the little games that you...
The shell game.
The shell game.
Yep.
And
people who have a healthy relationship with alcohol don't play a shell game. There's no shell game.
What are other variations of a shell game for people listening? Like what else could they look out for?
Minimization, like lying about how much you drink when you drink, lying how often you drink.
Yeah.
How much money you make, denying hangovers, like trying to play off things you did, messages you sent. Like I would wake up in the morning and like look at my phone, like who did I text?
Yeah.
Or there's a phone call and it's longer than a voicemail and you're like, okay.
You're like, what was said?
Okay, it's fine. Everything's fine.
Right.
And then you just like wait to see if they're going to text, or if it's a coworker, like you see them at work and you're like, oh, hey,
everything's cool, right? We're chill
for me. But a lot of people I know in recovery have a variation of that shell game where someone like my wife we can go to dinner and she'll order a glass of wine and she won't even finish it. And I'm like looking at it like, finish the wine, finish it.
Yeah.
No wounded soldiers.
No wounded soldiers. No man left behind.
No man left behind. And so that's the kind of thinking that I would exhibit, right? Like, so clearly I knew there was a problem because I had the defense mechanism. I had talking points. I did color inside the lines to, mostly.
And this was, and you colored inside of the lines because you had a formula, and It was a great way to perpetuate whatever it was that you wanted to be doing in the evenings, basically. Huh? You were functioning as a lot of people would say. Yeah, I was functioning
allegedly.
Allegedly, right? And, truthfully, I see that with people in my life, and that's why your story means so much to me, too. It's just... some people never, and that's why I think that your story is very approachable, because some people don't hit that really nasty rock bottom.
No,
they don't. Like most people don't have that like super gut wrenching, like I was drunk and hit somebody, and
right.
Like most people don't have that story.
And I think that's part of the collective myth that people co-create to feel better. Right. And I'm all for, like, I'm not a prohibitionist. I have friends that drink. I don't mind going out when people are drinking.
Right.
But I'm 7 years in, right? And I work a program, and I know what I know, and I know what I don't want, right? So I don't put myself in super vulnerable positions, but I think there's a lot of like commingling of justification and just normalcy of drinking. Like when you don't drink, you have to explain why. Like if you don't do Coke, you're not explaining why. Or if you're keto, like, cause you're doing a whatever 75 hard.
Yeah.
You're not like explaining why you're only having pokey. Like nobody asks you, but if I pony up and I don't get a drink, everyone's like, why? Why aren't you
Do people
drinking?
Still ask you?
People I don't know, or people who are curious. Usually if somebody asks me, it's because that's a very interesting approach of reaching out. I have a lot of people slide into my DMs or text messages at different points of connection, right? Who will reach out to me about something, and it's really about that,
Right. And
which I understand.
And you sparked something in my head, so I'm jotting it down. Yeah, because it's funny. Kate and I we do every single year Sober January, and a big part of that is alcoholism runs on both sides of my family.
Right.
And it's always been one of those things where at first we started doing it to this is gonna, I guess, sound maybe kind of funny, but to like honor them and show like, hey, we support you and this can be a lifestyle. It's very healthy.
Right.
And then we would do it as a reset. And I'm sure that you've got some coaching on that where you're like, that's not inspiring at all. It's just annoying. But we like, we do that. And I just, from my perspective, sometimes I feel when we're out to eat or whatever, and I'm in the middle of January and the server's like, and what do you two want to drink? And I feel like timid.
Right.
I'm like, oh, I'll take a club soda with a lime. Like I almost feel guilty.
Yeah.
Like,
you feel,
shoot,
that's a low key shame.
Right. And I'm like, I'm making their bill less. They're probably like, F these people. They don't even want to buy a drink. That's where we make all of our money.
I know. I go out to dinner and I'm ultimate troll. I order hot water with lemon.
That's what we were doing.
Like an old person.
I kind of love it though. Hey, great for the digestive system. Great.
It's great. And I'm always with people that order things. So, you know, I'm not nickel and diming them. I'm not splitting an entree.
You're not splitting an entree?
No. And I'm getting dessert. So,
hey, there you go. Dessert counts as a drink.
That's right.
And if you get nap, even better, right?
Totally. But I do think when I'm in a new place, and obviously now my platform has changed. Like I talk about sobriety. That's my main platform on TikTok. That's all I talk about. Sobertunity, my new book, Sobertunity, my new company, like all of that is alcohol facing.
Right.
And in a non-traditionalist sort of way, because my experience has taught me that it took me a really long time to not drink because I didn't want any label associated with me.
Right.
And I didn't fit necessarily into the mold of somebody who would go to treatment or who needed to go or wanted to go to AA every day. There are millions of people who are in that gray area.
Tell me more about that.
I think the gray area is just, you know, we don't want to be labeled. It's really uncomfortable. We don't want to owe an explanation. And also the permanency of it is really frightening.
It's like a huge commitment. It's forever, right?
It's forever, right? And so a dry January is nice because you has a definitive end.
Yeah, and that's why
right.
You're
and
like,
you're just
yeah,
like,
Zach,
okay,
sweet.
February 1st, I can just get like white girl wasted, right?
Exactly.
And just like, woo, oh my God. But
which almost, I mean, you know,
totally
we're spilling the tea. That happens for Kate and I almost every year. This was the first year where we were like, wait, this happened last year on February 1. We're not doing it again. And I'm also just getting to an age, you talk about the hangovers. I mean, you want to talk about a sacrifice. Yeah, even off a couple drinks now. Yeah. It's like 2 glasses of wine and my heart is beating through my chest when I'm trying to sleep.
It's just not worth it. And that's where it broke me. Because I was still really productive and really functional, but the mental health, the anxiety it produced was raging. And now it's so much easier to trace the origin of my anxiety because I've cut out the largest factor, which is drinking. And under that drinking umbrella was like, what did I do? What did I say? How do I feel? Like all of these things that I was doing to myself, which would then exponentially make the anxiety harder to trace, right? But when I cut out the substances, it's like, okay, what am I anxious about? Can I control it or not? You know, like really sort of like therapy-driven strategies.
Yes.
It makes it so much easier.
It does. And it's interesting that you bring up the consistency aspect because that's like the thing that I love the most about January. Right. Every single day, it's like a Saturday and I'm like, oh, I'm going to the gym today. Right. And I know exactly how I'm going to feel because everything else also seems to fall in line. It's like your bedtime, like it actually becomes what it's more or less supposed to be consistently.
100%.
You become more consistent at the gym. There's no more, again, like you said, the anxiety that then bleeds into the next day where you're like binging a show on the couch and ordering Uber Eats because you don't want to go out and see the light of day.
Yeah, you can't move. You can't move. And people will, you know, one annoying thing about me that's important to know is that when people in my life complain about money or not having enough money, I'm like, you know, the best way to double your income. And they think I'm going to sell them something. And I'm just like, quit drinking.
And it's the, yes.
And it's true. It's true as can be. You want to double your income, quit drinking. I swear to God, within a year, anybody who quits drinking will probably double their income.
All right, for anybody listening, if you don't hear anything else, I mean, we're all money driven. We're living in this type of expensive world right now.
Because
I mean, there's a golden nugget.
it makes you figure out what to do with your time, talent, and energy. And you have been lending all of that to a bank that has no return on investment. There's no ROI there. It's fun. It's loud. It's fun. There's lots of laughter, but it's like a merry-go-round. It's not going anywhere.
Right.
And so when I was 35, I'm like, okay, what is this like? And not that I'm so money driven, but I'm like, is this the lifestyle that I want? It's really fun on one hand, but I'm completely stagnant professionally. I'm going to cap out at 150, which in Orange County is not enough to do much. Right.
Right.
And then, I quit drinking in 2015. By April 2016, I was on the front page of the Huffington Post. I had a book deal. I was on, national TV. I was just like getting all these signs that, okay, keep going. And the only reason I wrote the article that ended up on the Huffington Post is because I was bored because I wasn't drinking.
Wow. So that's something interesting. So there's a couple things that I've written down, and I want to now dive into you decided I was going to do 30 days of sobriety, and that's turned into 7 years, 2 months. At the start of the journey, walk me through this, because I think there's going to be a lot of people that are like, damn it, Daniel, you're making me realize I need to start my journey.
Right.
I'm scared. There's a lot of things I'm concerned about. Friends. Right. Am I gonna lose friends? And if so, how do I cope? How do I have fun?
Right.
You brought that up. So can we talk about that?
Yeah. So friendship is the number one question I am asked on TikTok. Number one question is, what about my friendships? And I will say
give them the hard truth.
Yeah. Okay. Imagine that your life is an auditorium. It's a Staples Center, right? It's big. There's a lot of seats, and some people have VIP, front row, backstage, and some people are way up in the nosebleeds, right? Well, when you stop drinking, it's not that anything dramatic happens and you lose all your friends. Just organically, people start to shift. Like people from the front row start moving back. Over time, they move rows back, and people who are in the back move forward, right? And there's people up in the nosebleeds that from the stage, you can't even see them because they're so far away, but they're there. They're there. And that's what it is. It's like we have this paranoia and I think that's the reason a lot of people drink or use substances, is like lack of self-worth. Like, who am I? And so much of my agency was Daniel, the party guy. He was fun. He could drop it low on the dance floor. Like there was no drink I wouldn't take, and no circumstance in which I would say no.
Right.
So who am I without that? Like, what do I do with my time?
Right.
People are there. You just can't see them.
Right.
And some people who were next to you and on stage or front row or VIP, like some of them are going to drift, and that's okay, because if you're not shedding people, you're not truly changing.
So I love this analogy so much because I can picture it, and I think everybody who's ever been to a concert can picture it too. And that's kind of the setting I'm picturing it in, right? You're like, your life is this concert. You're the fun guy. You're the star of the show. And you've got these friends that they bought the VIP pass because they want to party with Daniel. No drink he won't take, no shot he won't take, no dance move he won't do. And then you've got people in the nosebleeds that, they're there, but they came to listen to the music.
Correct.
And they don't need all the backstage shenanigans.
Right.
And so, okay, but so here's something interesting, right? Like I'm 30 now, and I was a big time party guy too. I made that transformation in 2016. I still drink. I'm not going to sit here and act like a saint. But it's in moderation now for the most part. A couple times a year, I'll have the old traditional turn up, and then I wake up the next day and I'm like, why do I keep doing this to myself? Right. But something that's been so hard for me, and that's why I understand why that's probably the most asked question on TikTok for you is, so I had so many friends, right? Like I have all my boys from back home. I've got all my friends from college. I've got all my friends from every stage of life that I've ever been in, and I love people. But as I've gotten older, friendships, whether you're trying to go down the path of sober or not, they drift.
Totally.
And I feel like that has been something that, I'll be honest, it's been painful at times, where I almost like have this like really intense, harsh voice in my head where I'm like, forget them. And
right.
then other times
it's catastrophic thinking, right? And
yes.
I think that's part of the experience, but think about your own reflection on, like, we don't think about people don't think about us as much as we think they do. Right. So
They don't, right?
there's a lot of times like someone might text you, Zach, and you don't text them back, right? You leave them unread and you don't mean to, but you're just moving through life. And then 2 weeks later, you're like, God, I didn't text him back, but it's too late. You're in that too late phase where you're just like, so you just don't do it, right? You're just like, I'm just not going to do it. You're not intentionally trying to hurt their feelings. You're just they're just not front and center right now. But I definitely have that, like, I don't keep a lot of people. I'm not overly social. And I've really transformed my relationship with the word fun.
That was
fun used to mean
question.
Like bars on bikes, happy hour, drunk concerts, beach days, pool days, day drinking. Is there anything better than day drinking? Also,
day drinking is the best.
Also, no.
You can dodge the hangover.
Right. So
you stop early enough, you can just dodge the hangover, right?
That's right.
A nice meal,
the shampoo effect, you just start drinking the next day and you just go with it. But now I think about fun as opportunity.
Yeah.
And I look at the opportunities that being sober has, I'm not going to say presented, but they've unfolded, like being able to work with corporations and write books and get paid to talk and get paid to create TikToks. Like what? Like who work from home, work from anywhere. Like all of these things are little tiny changes that every single day that I don't drink compound like interest. And this time it does have a return on the investment, right? This time,
yes, sir.
It's giving me that upward trajectory. Is it perfect? No. Do I fail at a lot of things I try to start? Yes. But as long as I'm not drinking, I still have that creative, anxious energy that I have to repurpose or what,
So it kind of forces you into finding that creativity outside of drinking.
And I'm not saying everyone in here has to be, with the word creative, again, it's not all just like painting, photography. Creative energy is any energy for anything that you're capable of that you've been lending to the bank of alcohol.
I like that. I like that a lot. And it can come in a lot of different forms. It can be artistic. It can be entrepreneurship,
right? Like
what you've done. I mean, and when you talk about ROI, $1 million business, and more is coming because you talk about that compounding, right?
I mean, if you had told me 8 years ago, Daniel, this is what your life is going to be like. Look at your resume, look at what you're doing, look where you're living and what your, kind of day to day looks like. I would have bought you and me another round. Like, you can fuck right off. Let's go. Waitress.
That's amazing. Yeah, go ahead and get it. Let's get everybody a round in the bar.
Yeah.
And it's cool because you've built this thing. I mean, your brand is built from scratch.
Mm-hmm.
And there is just something so beautiful about that. And that takes a lot of commitment, which means you have to be clear-headed and you have to be committed to your process.
Well, same with your brand.
True, definitely. And I always say progress over perfection. And I am definitely in its purest form in that process. Like I am not perfect.
And you're a great example of change before you have to.
True.
Like you had to give up a very corporate, stable job to create the life that you wanted.
Yes. And it's funny. In the highs and lows of entrepreneurship, even in my darkest days, which come with entrepreneurship, I mean, I'm sure that you experienced that on a low day. I think to myself, if I had to submit a forecast right now and get hounded over deals in a corporate setting, and again, no knock, the corporation that I work for gave me a lot of skills, but even on my darkest days, when I think about the product I was selling, just how I could care less about, I literally could have cared less about the innovation, the product. I like the people because I've always liked people, and that's why I'm in a people business. I'm sure same as you. On my lowest days, I'm like, I would rather choose this every single time, no question.
Right. And I think people can get that concept twisted, right? Because when I'm having a really bad day, I drive by the high school that I worked for 12 years.
Yeah.
I drive by it and I make myself look at it. Now,
I like
I'm
that.
friends with a lot of people that still work in that building.
Yes.
It doesn't mean I'm better than them. It doesn't mean they shouldn't work there. It doesn't mean the fact that they love working there makes them less than me. We are different people, right?
Yep.
So, but you know, sometimes you have to give up the life you think you want for the life you really can have. And for me, that was alcohol and being a principal. I had to say enough is enough. And I can always go back to those two things.
Yes.
But I don't know what I don't know.
And you've said that to me many, many times. I don't know what I don't know, but having that willingness to go out there and explore, I think
it's horrifying.
It's so scary.
It's so scary.
And that's actually why my wife and I have talked about this a lot. Younger Zach was gung-ho. Everybody should do what they love. Exactly. And I still believe in that. But like, it was always what I didn't finish the sentence with oftentimes was like, and it should be through the form of entrepreneurship. And now being an entrepreneur, I'm like, oh, this ain't meant for everybody. Like,
no, it's not.
This is a select group of people that go into the unknown every single day because, like you said, you've created so many different products and services and offerings and tried to market them and experimented and written books and blogs and this and that. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but there's no roadmap.
There's no roadmap, and you just have to show up. And I think it's not like if you get sober, you have to be an entrepreneur, or if you do this, you have to do that. In fact, there's a lot of things about being an entrepreneur that don't lend itself to sobriety or mental health disorders, like unpredictable schedule, feast and famine with income, like really depending on other people's response to you for validation and money, right? None of those things are necessarily congruent with staying sober and staying mentally well.
Right.
So I have to create my own structure, like with fitness and meditation and things like that. Like I have to build my own schedule where there is none to withstand the fact that a lot of what I'm doing, I'm not in control of.
Okay. So you said a lot there, and I think that that's going to be important in this conversation. So real quickly, what are, like, somebody's at the start of their journey. They're like, okay, I've heard Daniel's story. This is something I fit the description.
Right.
They're worried about losing friends.
Mm-hmm.
What say you to that real quick? Like, what is the mindset on that?
I mean, honestly, don't hate me because you ain't me. Like, I just think that's just not my main concern. People are historically pretty disappointing. Yeah. even when you don't leave a habit or hobby. I will say that, like, my good friends, quote unquote, true friends, once you open up to them and allow them to support you, they're very supportive. When people show you who they are, believe them. So that's a good way to figure out who your friends are. Rip the Band-Aid off. What I didn't do, which I would do differently, is I kept it a big dark secret for like 6 months. I didn't tell anyone. Yeah. I was making excuses and bobbing and weaving. And I didn't allow people to support me because I was so afraid of rejection. Okay. I wish I wouldn't have done that. And it's easy to say now, 7 years in, but when I finally was like, I'm not drinking, it's not healthy for me, it's too hard on my mental health, I'm taking a break. People weren't like, oh, just take one shot. Like, they were like, oh, that's great. Like, good for you. I wish I could do that. Or I would show up at their house and they'd have LaCroix or, Diet Coke. Right. So most of those fears, as they related to friendships, never manifested. And then the friendships that shifted was just because I wasn't going to happy hour and I wasn't hitting the bars. Like, I just wasn't. And so there's no tea, there's no drama. It's just, but I found people who also really don't do those things. Yeah. So big thing for people listening, what I pulled from what Daniel just said is, like, a lot of those fears that he had never actually truly manifested. And it was just, I love that you used the word shift, because it's so, like, it's like a very neutral word. It's not aggressive. It's not like falling out or it's just things shifted. They shifted, and that's okay. Things shift all the time. Fears aren't facts most of the time. Fears aren't facts. I love that. So then another thing is, how do people have fun? Just some examples. I mean, what are some things that you've tried or that you recommend people tap into? How does that process work? I mean, again, I think my idea of fun is different. Like, I've just sort of rerouted, but I would say early on, fun was just like, again, like, there's something really nice about waking up without a hangover. There's something really nice about waking up early on a weekend and feeling refreshed. I think for me, like after the first year, getting through the first of anything was really hard. So first wedding, no drinking, like proving to myself that I could.
Right.
Did I have any fun at the wedding? No, I didn't. I'm not going to be like, oh my God, it was amazing. It wasn't amazing. In fact, the first wedding that was truly amazing didn't come until this last summer when, you know, sometimes I got through them, but I never really had that much fun. I had more fun than I've ever had at a wedding this summer. And that's like when I knew that layer was finally off, right? The wedding. Because no one got as drunk as Daniel at a wedding. And
it's like wedding crashers.
But like first funeral, first family vacation, first pool day, first birthday, first Valentine's Day, you name it. Once I kind of got through those big markers and understood that I could get through them, first I just had to get through them.
Yeah.
I think people put too much pressure on themselves to get through something and enjoy it at the same time.
That's powerful, folks. Let that sink in. Okay.
So sometimes I think you need to just get through it and have realistic goals and expectations. The fun pops up when you're not expecting it.
Yeah.
So a lot of the systemic classic fun, like an open bar at a wedding, isn't as fun. And that's okay. It just shifts because waking up early and going for a hike is now fun. And you're like, that's so boring. But anybody who tells me that being sober is boring, I'd like you to re-examine. I used to say I was scared of being bored or boring. What I really meant, I was scared of being lonely. I was scared of not having good friends. I was scared of lack of human connection. I was afraid of judgment. Like, call it by its name. But don't tell me that you're scared of being bored, because what you're really saying is a half-ass answer for your actual emotions.
And that last one, that judgment, resonates with me so much. Whereas Kate, my wife, she could care less about peer pressure. That girl's never picked up. So obviously she'll have her wine, but she's never picked up a drug in her life. Meanwhile, this guy was getting high for 7 years straight, and she had there's just this uneasiness still, even at times, where I'm like, that fear of judgment comes in. And I think that's a human experience. And the judgment, if you follow the trail, right, it's like judgment leads to rejection, leads to loneliness. Right.
It always comes back to that, I think. And when people give you a hard time for making a change in your life that's authentically important to you, it's usually because you are a mirror to them and they don't like their reflection. But you're not Windex, right? So not your problem. Your reaction to my recovery is not my responsibility. As long as I'm gracious and nice and authentic, like, your choice to do whatever, say whatever, be whatever. Like, I don't care if you drink. I don't care if you I love that for you. I'll drive you, but stay off my lawn.
I'm going to let that sink in. I think that's really powerful. And I've got people in mind that I think that's really powerful for. So you talked a little bit about your strategy. I want to be respectful of your time because I know that is very valuable. What are some of your recovery strategies? You talked about meditation, exercise.
I would say my core tenets are medication, therapy, meditation, exercise, mentorship, or service to others, right? Always having a mentor that's ahead of me, both in the mental health arena, sobriety arena, and entrepreneurship arena. And whatever the program is, my recovery plan has changed over the years, right?
Right.
Whatever it is, consistency is key, is very key. So whatever it is, again, building structure, some non-negotiables. So early on, it was I'm not going to go out. I'm not going to put myself in that position where I feel uncomfortable. Other people feel uncomfortable. I feel temptation, whatever. Well, the goalposts move over time, right? Whereas now I can go out and I'm fine. So
I think that people listening, I just wrote down mentorship because I'm like, that really resonates. I feel like mentorship and having somebody that's ahead of you in the process. How does somebody go about finding a mentor?
Just organically, I think when I when I started my journey into entrepreneurship, I took coffee and got coffee with like kind of anyone and everyone, right?
Yeah.
I followed people on social media. But it's important to remember that comparison is the thief of joy. So you aren't them, right? And so sometimes you have to unfollow people, and sometimes you have to unfollow people in real life, right? And replace them with different kinds of role models. So there's a lot of different ways to find mentors and to mentor people, I think.
Yeah.
Social media is a great place to find that.
Okay. And just kind of hit them with the classic, can I take you out for coffee and pick your brain for 30 minutes?
Be direct about like kind of what you want, right?
Yeah. Hey, I'm looking to start, like if I'm somebody who's looking to start their sobriety journey, it's like, hey, I'm looking to start that journey. I see that you're all over TikTok. You got 50,000 plus followers. Could I pick your brain for 30 minutes and treat you to a meal or coffee or something?
Right. Yeah. And then there's just always like what I encourage people to do on TikTok is like, of my followers, like find an accountability partner, like find someone else in this feed who's commenting, who you guys can support each other.
I love that.
And strangers on the internet make the best champions for whatever reason.
Why is that?
People in your real life, like your change makes them uncomfortable. I don't know why, it just does. But people on the internet, as much as there's trolls and all of that, I just block and bless. Like, well, see you never. But the other people, you never have a bigger supporter than someone you've never met.
Yes. They don't have all of this like history to pull from. It's like who you are now is who they know. It's, the best way this is going to be a funny example, but it's like meeting the guy at the gym that is bald and you just know him as bald. He had hair once.
Right.
I don't know that guy, and I don't care to know that guy, and I don't care if you have hair or not. Right. I think you look great. You know what I mean?
Great. Yeah. Perfect example.
That's really powerful. I like that. The accountability partner and finding it in the feed. So, I mean, obviously we're going to let you tell people where to follow you and connect, but that is a great way to find an accountability partner. A couple more questions, because I know I do want to be respectful of your time. So people are ready to start their journey. You talked about therapy, medication. Where do you point people if they're ready to kind of start that recovery journey?
Well, I know for me that I had to spend a few years working toward quitting, like with my therapist. Like I had to like unpack the why behind the what. Sometimes if you just attack the what without addressing the why, it's a futile battle. It leads to what I call boomerang benders, which is like you don't drink for 90 days and then you just get fucking hammered and you're just devastated, right? Because you haven't really treated the underlying issue.
Yes.
Alcohol or whatever your vice is just a vehicle of expression for whatever is over here unsettled. So for me personally, therapy was really important. And it's expensive, right? So I really like Cerebral, which is that online platform. Which is like therapy. That. It's an app. It's psychiatrists, and they have a sliding scale. They work with insurance, and it's as little as like $120 a month.
Wow. Okay.
Income-based, and that's for weekly therapy.
That's very low cost.
Yeah.
How are they doing it?
Front facing, well, because it's sliding scale, right? So if you can pay, you pay, and they can bill insurance if they can bill insurance. But even like, I don't, off and on, I've gone to AA.
Okay.
That's free as can be.
I
liked it because I thought I didn't need it and I was too good for it. So you should always do something that humbles you, right?
Okay.
But am I a person that stayed in that system and only done that? No.
Okay.
And that's not because I don't think I need it. It's just that part of my recovery plan, and I think the big hiccup with a lot of people not stopping drinking is labels, thinking you have to that's probably the number 2 question on my feed in TikTok. Do you go to AA? Because that's like big brand. Like that's what just people know. Right.
Yeah.
So
are there, and I certainly, AA is doing
refuge
great work.
recovery. Refuge recovery is a Buddhist based. And it's really cool. It's meditations and readings and principles, and they have in-person meetings and they have virtual meetings and they have books, right? So if like some people are like, I don't want to go to AA, I'm not Christian, it's too Christian. Well, then why don't you check out Refuge? Then there's smart recovery, which is like the two, but without any religion, right? There's Annie Grace's whole pipeline of like the naked mind and naked coaching.
Naked mind, naked coaching. Okay.
Yeah. I create content for an app called Lived. And Lived is completely free. And it's like the Calm app for people who don't want to drink. So there's 3-day courses, 7-day courses, moments like happy hour or parenting, or there's 90-second meditations. It's 100% free.
Yeah. You are, I mean, I'm buzzing over here because you are just dropping one resource after the next that I didn't know about any of these. And I'm just like, I'm stoked. Like, I can't wait to check these out after. I think it's dope that you're creating content for Lived. I think that's so cool. And I just love that it sounds like there's something out there for everybody.
Right. I think that the way that it used to be and the way that it is are completely different.
Yeah.
And so I call them traditionalists. There's people who they're very traditional in their recovery plan, and that's fine. It works for them. But with a younger demographic, that's just not how people live anymore.
Yeah.
You can't Uber Eats and only say that there's one way to recover in the same conversation.
That's facts.
But people will do it. I'll be talking to some old timer and they're like, the only way to do it is AA. And then they call an Uber at the same time. And I'm like, well, that's a fucking contradiction.
Yeah. You're like,
where's your taxi? Yeah. Where's your taxi?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Did you bring your
checkbook?
Taxi? And this is not a referendum on old people, because I love old people.
Not.
But
yeah,
my point is that a simple Google search will lay bare like so many different pathways.
I love that. And I think that is the innovation that we're seeing too. That, in this country, I think is one of the special things about growing up here is that there's so many opportunities to create and bring something to the marketplace that can really, really help people and transform lives. And it's more this is I guess a blanket statement, but in business, I think the more different types of offerings you have, the better, right? Because it breeds competition to a certain extent, and it helps people. It brings better services and products to the market that people can then benefit from.
Yeah, if you look at the competitive landscape, of even free recovery platforms, one pops up because it's like an antithesis of another.
Yeah.
And it's just trying to extend the reach, right? But it's that competitive landscape that keeps innovation alive.
I think that's beautiful. So last two questions for you, because I know we're a little bit over on time, is how important is purpose in somebody's recovery? You said unpacking the why, maybe getting to the root of things, but and I definitely agree with that. But I'm curious about your perspective on purpose in that journey, number one.
Yeah, I think purpose is, I'm not going to say it's overused, but I think it's maybe oversimplified, because I had no idea what my purpose was. Yeah. I only knew that what my purpose wasn't, right? Which was not to be drinking and not to be this depressed and this anxious.
Yeah.
So I had to fully stop that, what I didn't want, which is often easier to identify. Because people will be like, I don't know what I want to do. I don't know what I want to do with my life. Well, the only way to find that is to get really, really, really still. And the analogy I use is like, if you ever go to the beach, I used to love going to the beach and drinking. You put your towel down on the sand, and then way off in the distance, there's that like weird guy with a wand, metal detector.
Yes, the metal detector.
You know that guy?
Oh yeah.
And you're just sitting there drinking and having fun, and he's looking for things under the sand that nobody can see. And that's kind of how I felt it. Like I spent all my time on the sand, on my towel with my drink, that I couldn't possibly understand what was below me, like what was down there. I had no idea. So purpose is great, but sometimes a purpose is just defining who you don't want to be anymore.
So my wife says that all the time. She says, she goes, I almost always know what I don't want. I struggle sometimes to know what I do want, but I think knowing what you don't want, it from what you're saying, and you have made me think about this differently too, is like, that's a huge part of the equation.
I think saying no enough leads to the right yes. And
saying no enough.
we often like do it backwards, where like we don't know what we want. So we like yes to this and yes to that and yes to this. And you're just like spinning around, like trying to figure out who am I? What am I doing? Like this urgency.
Yeah.
No, go slow to go far. You got to get real still, real boring, real quiet, real curious, and just understand what you don't like. Say no, 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 no. And I have to do that as I built my business over the last 6-7 years. There's times when I'm like, okay, this is like really good money. It's really easy, but it doesn't serve me anymore. So I just like last year when I was transitioning, now that the pandemic is kind of hopefully on its final season,
praying, hopefully.
I had been doing a lot of one-to-one coaching, a lot of really intense crisis management work, high pay, high stakes, high stress, right? I started saying no. Nope, 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 no, thank you, no, thank you. I'm full. I'm not taking clients, just lying, right? And then on the back end, I was just waiting. And then honestly, like the universe, and this sounds cheesy, but as soon as I said no and I meant it, parachuting down came speaking opportunities that I couldn't see. I thought nobody was interested in me, but it took me saying no, because that theory, this is the most important thing I can tell you today. Decision before provision. You have to decide what you want without any guarantees of what will happen. It's only when you mean mean it, like I'm willing to, you got to risk it to get the biscuit, like you're just like, enough is enough.
Yeah.
Once you mean it through doing, saying no, 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 that could be to a drink, toxic friend, like boyfriend who's just like, a total Chad, like, no, thank you. You got to say no enough times. And once you mean it, then the universe gives you whatever that the prize is, whatever's under the sand.
So you just gave me chills. Decision before provision. And this is important, really important. And that was literally going to be my next question, which is, what is that one piece of advice you would give somebody? And you just did. And I've seen that so many times in my life. I'm going to give you one silly example and one big example. The silly one being, so I wear this gold chain, right? And
okay.
it is a family heirloom. My grandfather passed this down to me when he passed away.
Okay.
And I wear it with pride because he grew up on a small farm in middle of the country, America. And at that time, his whole family, they were all farmers. That's all they did. Poor, dirt floors, outhouse, the whole deal, the whole nine. And one day he's working the fields and they're building a highway out back behind his farmland. I remember this story out of all the stories he ever told me. And one day they finished it and cars started driving by. And he told me, he said, I didn't know where those cars were going. I just knew that I wanted to be heading in that direction.
Correct.
Decision before provision.
Exactly.
But when I started wearing this chain, people would come up to me and make fun of me.
Right.
They would pick at it and they would go, oh, sick chain, man. Like they would make fun of me. And I remember like early on being like, I love the story behind why I wear this. I'm never taking this off. And it was like the decision that I was proud of it.
Right.
And it's funny, like those comments have literally completely disappeared. And to this day, I think that was the universe testing my conviction around the story that my grandfather told me,
right,
that I now carry with me everywhere that I go, which now leads to my second story of everything that you talked about in terms of how you built your business, how I'm building and started out my business was right. I had a decision. I wanted to help people after I came through the other side of my recovery journey.
Right.
And I knew that I was good at speaking. Didn't know how I was going to help people, didn't know where it was going to come from. And I made the decision that this is what I wanted to do with my life.
I remember that.
Yes. And it's that decision before provision. But when you make that decision, if you commit, those provisions do come. They do.
And they come in different ways. Like it's not always a paycheck. It's just, you just get different rewards from God or the universe or higher power, whatever you want to call it.
Yep.
But it's the fortunes and the follow through. So you have to mean it, and you have to say no, even when saying yes would be a quick dollar or an easy opportunity that's not really getting you anywhere.
Discipline is really hard though.
Yeah.
Any tips on discipline?
I mean, depends on what we're talking about, right? Because every day I have to wake up and decide I'm not going to drink today, right? So
yeah.
But I'm like, every day I say no leads to a new yes. The ratio is not the same. It might be 300 no's gets you one big yes, right?
Yep.
But the yeses, they weigh so much more than the no's.
Wow. Just the yeses weigh so much more than the no's. So I know I keep saying this, but there is another question I have. So sure. you do occasionally or every day miss alcohol.
Yeah. I mean, I miss being able to, I miss the flexibility, or what I miss is like, I don't even know if I miss that as much as I look at people who have a healthy relationship and be like, God, I wish I was them. I wish I could have that. Right. But then I look at the other side of the coin. There's people that look at me and go, I wish I could have that. Right. So it's all relative to the exchange. But do I miss it? Yeah, sometimes. Right. But I always ask myself, if I ever wanted to take a drink, I stop and I ask myself 4 questions. Will this benefit my mental health? Will this benefit my physical health? Will this benefit my financial wealth? And will this benefit my relationships? And so far, the answer has always been no.
That's going into the show notes. That's 100% going into the show notes. Okay. I think I want to be respectful. I could literally talk there's a lot more that could be said, and a lot more that could be talked about, but I think that is a great piece of advice to end on. Okay. You are Daniel. I have to say, man, like, you are an expert.
Thank you.
You are an expert, and you are a storyteller. That. You really are. And this episode is dope, and I'm excited for people to hear it.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. This is great.
So a couple things. What services do you offer for listeners at the moment? What are the different ways that they can tap in with you?
Well, you can download Lived. I can give you a link to put in your bio or for the store notes or whatever. Okay. You can connect with me on sobertunity.com, which is my new company, newer company. There's a self-paced course you can take. If you like the activities that I've talked about, I actually recorded videos, and you can download a workbook and do it on your own pace. Right now, that's about it. Unless you're a Fortune 100 or Fortune 500 company who wants me to speak. Like, I spoke at Chevron, and I'm going to speak to Deloitte and, some other companies, to their 20-something staff. But that's about it.
To all the big companies out there, hire my guy.
Yeah.
Hire him now.
Hit me up.
You need this message. But yes, to the individual, I've been on the website, super easy to use website. His course is on there. His books are on there. So
there's shirts. You can grab a shirt. You can follow me on TikTok or Instagram as Patterson Perspective, which is my other company, pattersonperspective.com. My websites are linked to each other. So it's, you'll find me.
Awesome. So Patterson Perspective on TikTok, Instagram. I am not on TikTok. I will be now after my conversation. Yes, I will be. I follow him on Instagram. Super inspirational. I know that that's not his goal, but very helpful in that regard. So give him a follow. Show my man some love. He's crushing the game. True inspiration. And Daniel, I want to thank you for coming on the show, man.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
Any final words for the audience?
No, I mean, believe in yourself. Keep going. Be like Zach. Be like Zach.
Be like Zach. Be like Daniel. Okay.